Hello, good morning, Mr. Ambassador.
Good name, Sawadee-Kap.
Sawadee-Kap. Welcome to Workpoint Today, and I'm welcoming our audience to Mr. Michael George de Sombri, U.S. Ambassador to Thailand. Good morning again. We are waking up in the morning of, I would say, a bit of chaos in the U.S. with people starting to protest the quarantine and also the social distancing. What is your comment on what we see from the U.S. now?
I think all of us around the world that have been spending a fair amount of time practicing social distancing, staying at home, avoiding all our fun activities, visiting our family over Songkran and otherwise has obviously been very difficult on all of us. And obviously there's some people that are more frustrated than others. But in the U.S., it's a very small amount of people. It's relatively scattered. And, in some places where we're already seeing potential for opening up, like in Texas, where the governor's already started moving down the process of opening up the economy again.
Mm-hmm. So when you speak about the economics, how would the U.S. level things between health and economy now? That this is a growing issues. Every country is, like whether we should stop the lockdown and then turn on the economy 100%. How does the U.S. see things now?
That is the key question of our time, Kunaim, and I think a lot of people much smarter than me are spending a lot of time looking at that. But clearly, the way the president has focused on it is really to give a lot of that power to the governors. The U.S. federalist system obviously devolves a significant power to the governors and encourages them to make decisions because they're much closer to the people. And even municipalities, townships, counties, going down and having those decisions made on an individual basis. Because clearly, even in states where there's been significantly affected cities, there may be rural areas that are significantly unaffected. So it really needs to be balanced between, how significantly affected the location is. But clearly, shutting down an economy also has substantial health detriments. And you'll clearly have rise in poverty, rise in starvation in some countries, rise in mental health issues, physical, domestic issues, and otherwise. So we need to recognize that having the economy locked down cannot be a perpetual state. So clearly, eventually, economies need to open up, and the balancing of a gradual opening up process, as I've indicated even to my mission personnel at a town hall last Friday, when thinking how our mission will go back to opening up, I've emphasized that it's going to be a gradual, dynamic, and geographic process. So it'll be gradual in that we'll do it slowly, make sure as we do it, we don't have an increase in cases in the mission, or if you're looking at a city or country, increase in cases in the country. And then dynamic, because you may need to stop it down a little bit, opening it back up, that whole process. And then clearly, as I mentioned, the geographic elements, you have to look to see where things are. My Chiang Mai consulate, for example, the situation in Chiang Mai is significantly different than the Bangkok metropolitan area. And that's true in Thailand, that's true in the United States. So you need to look at it sort of a gradual, dynamic, geographic process.
But I want to ask you about the U.S. citizens in Thailand. What kind of reaction did you get so far? There are a lot of U.S. citizens wanted to go back to the U.S.
Actually, most U.S. citizens that are here on a long-term basis have chosen to remain in Thailand. I think most of them are very confident in the public health system here. They've actually seen the success of the government policies in flattening the curve and reducing the number of infections. And we haven't seen an overburdened healthcare system. So most of the Americans we have here have decided to stay. There's obviously some who have decided to return, and particularly people that were tourists here that were caught out, and wanted to get back. But obviously, the health and safety of Americans in Thailand is my top priority. It's an area that I spend a lot of my time on, and our counselor services for Americans continue to be available as required for any emergency services and for everything else. But at the moment, we're actually finding that most Americans here in Thailand are comfortable being here in Thailand and are prepared to be here for a while until we get through this process.
So on the other hand, there are Thais living in the US, and living there during this coronavirus time is quite difficult for them. We have reported 200 people at least apply for seat to come back to Thailand. I know it's not your authority to allow them to come back or not, but what would you say to them?
Well, I know we just cooperated in the last few days with the Royal Thai government in bringing back about 160 of the AFS students that just landed yesterday that were high school students on exchange programs to the U.S. And we're very pleased to have cooperated with the Royal Thai government to bring those back, along with certain other students that the Royal Thai government has brought back. But obviously, the United States, there's a large number of Thai students at the university or graduate level and other, obviously, Thai citizens that live in the United States. I think in general, even when you look at how difficult many of the situations are, it's still a small percentage of the population that is obviously affected by the virus. And in most cases, people are perfectly healthy. They're just having to live like you and I are, social distancing, staying at home, keeping safe, washing their hands. But most people are healthy by and large.
Mm-hmm. Oh, speaking of the U.S., people may criticize President Trump on his opinion about the coronavirus, especially his inconsistency, like at the beginning, maybe in January or February, his opinion is toward the virus is that it's not the big things, it's nothing to be worried about. But now we see a big spike in death and people who get infected in the US. Do you see that is like not quite a good example of the world to tackle this issue?
I think President Trump has shown amazing leadership on this issue, and it's often very good to go back and look at the timeline. A lot of people criticize President Trump for having acted too slowly, but on January 30th, when President Trump decided to shut down travel from China, and then a few weeks later from other European countries, he was criticized as being too aggressive and not, and acting in ways that were contrary to what was appropriate. And one of the biggest challenges, particularly during January, was the lack of transparent information coming out of the WHO. I mean, as you and I know, the first case in Thailand was on January 13th. The WHO, notwithstanding evidence to the contrary, didn't declare that human-human transmission was widespread until the end of January, a period of multiple weeks where had Thailand known about it earlier, just like had the US known about it earlier, we would have been able to do a lot more. So, I mean, a lot of the history, if you look back on it, really shows that President Trump actually acted much faster than everyone was expecting. And that was even in light of the lack of appropriate information coming out of the WHO and China about the virulency and lethality of this virus.
What have you learned about Thai handling of health issue? Like our system, you have been in Thailand for the last 2-3 months. And you have seen Thailand at a very interesting times dealing with coronavirus. What have you seen and learned about Thailand so far?
Yes, so although the economic relationship and the strategic relationship have been key aspects of my priority before I arrived, since I've arrived, obviously health cooperation and the health system in Thailand has been a key focus of mine. And what a lot of people hadn't realized was that the United States has been actively supporting the Thai health system for over 70 years, originally starting with the USAID and then 60 years with the Armed Forces Research Institute of Medical Sciences, and then in the last 40 years with the CDC. I mean, the CDC has worked so closely with the Ministry of Public Health over the last 40 years to develop and to help develop the Thai health system into one of the leadings in the world. I mean, it was ranked, I think, by some independent experts as being the 5th best prepared for a pandemic of any country in the world. And I think we've seen the great results of that preparation, the great results of the foresight of the Ministry of Public Health to work with the CDC and really prepare their system of surveillance, their system of testing, and their public hospital system in general to be ready for challenging situations like the one we're experiencing now. And that's why I think we've seen that the Thai health system has not become overburdened, that they've been very successful in doing contact tracing and trying to capture as many of the important close contacts of any positive case that emerges. So it's actually been a very positive experience that we've seen in watching the Ministry of Public Health and how it's worked through the system. And I've expressed my admiration to both Prime Minister Prayut and also to Deputy Prime Minister Anutin about how well the Ministry of Public Health has done.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to pick up one details that people in the East and the West may see it differently is about wearing masks. Do you normally wearing masks nowadays?
I follow the Thai regulations that when I'm out in public, I will wear a cloth mask. I think you may have seen in my meeting with the Prime Minister, I chose a cloth mask and I put on a U.S. flag and a American presidential symbol on the other side to try to make it look a little bit more personal. But yes, I will be wearing masks in public.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of people in the West may see it as, people who wear masks. It means that they are already sick or ill. But unlike a lot of us, we are, I would say, a bit more cautious about health. What else have you learned from living in Thailand? Are there anything that specifically more impressive than others?
Well, on the mask issue, obviously, I've lived in Asia for many years and have been experienced with lots of people wearing masks. And the U.S. CDC obviously has recently changed its guidance to encourage the wearing of cloth face coverings and other non-surgical masks when out in public and not able to keep the 6 foot, social distancing and others. And so the key is to keep the important surgical masks and other real personal protective equipment for people in the hospitals and healthcare providers, but that wearing cloth masks can generally help prevent the asymptomatic spread of the virus. So that's been a different change. But in response to your question in general, what's impressed me about Thailand, I mean, this is an incredibly beautiful country. And although I've vacationed here and worked here on and off since the late 90s, I've never had the chance to live here. And even though I'm not able to travel around as much, I've been amazingly impressed by the beauty of the country, the welcomeness of the people, and the quality of the food, because I really do like Thai food. And it's been a pleasure having real Thai food as opposed to what I was otherwise able to get in other locations.
Ideally, it would be great if things aren't the way it is now, because supposedly you were here to continue that trade deals and penetrate on economics. What kind of dent do you see the coronavirus has put that into our trading relationships between Thailand and the US?
That's a very good question. Obviously, strengthening our economic partnership between the United States and Thailand is one of my top priorities. Clearly, in the last few months, I haven't been able to focus on that as much, but we're building off of a very good base. I mean, Thai exports to the U.S. increased over 10% last year. Our economic trade is about $47 billion. I mean, it's very robust. And, obviously, there'll be some short-term hit on that during this virus. But there's clearly a great opportunity for us to use the reopening process to really try to bring our trading relationship closer. And one of the areas that I know I'll be speaking to a lot of my American businessmen and other international business leaders during this week is about how we can try to get more supply chains to move to Thailand. A lot of countries, a lot of companies around the world, particularly American companies, are reevaluating where their supply chains are and how many countries they need to go through and the risks of what happens in those countries impacting their ability to retain in business. So I think Thailand is in a unique position to attract very many supply chains from China and other countries into Thailand. And that's an area that I know I'm going to be focusing on with American international business leaders and trying to convey some thoughts into the Prime Minister's office and into generally the opening up of thought process as well, so that we can turn this cloud into a silver lining by saying, okay, we have this difficult economic situation now, but it provides us a great opportunity to look at how we can better improve the Thai economy and better make Thailand a more attractive destination for not only supply chains, but foreign investments as well.
You have arrived Thailand in the last 2 or 3 months. It's pretty much like all things related to coronavirus. How is your quarantines, work from home experience been doing so far?
It's a very good question, and particularly because I come from the private sector where working out of the office was very much the norm. When I was traveling around Asia doing various deals and such in the last 20 years, I might be in the office only 1/5 or 1/2 of the time. And so I was continually teleworking. But for lots of governments, that was not typically the case. So it was interesting coming into Mission Thailand once we started implementing teleworking and alternate work arrangements, which I very early put in place in March. It took a while for the embassy to get used to that. And even today, the systems I'm working on here at home we're not ones that people knew anything about, or how to use Zoom, or how to use Cisco WebEx, or Google Hangouts, or Microsoft Teams, all the big opportunities that are now used for this. And I can say quite honestly that our mission is working quite well doing telework. We have in general no more than 10% or so of our staff in the office. The remainder are teleworking, and I think people are very surprised by how efficient they're able to be, and how little our work product has dropped off, notwithstanding our significant teleworking. So it's and it provides some benefits. I have to admit, I'm generally having lunch with my children and my wife every day, as well as dinner. So it's actually quite nice in that regard. Get to spend a little bit more time with my family than I otherwise was expecting. So I gotta look at the positives every once in a while.
Yeah, but you don't get to, maybe in your time off, go to the beach, go to a nice restaurant. You don't even get to do the Songkran video, which normally, all the ambassador enjoy doing that, like during big festival, the Water Splash Festival in Thailand.
Yes, I'm very sorry I missed sort of my first real Songkran. I'll look forward to the new date when we can celebrate it this year, and then hopefully next year do it for real in the full scale. But you're actually absolutely right, Kunaim. I haven't been able to take advantage of a lot of the beauties of Thailand. Haven't been able to play much golf or go to the beach or do other things that I would like to do. But I'm sure we'll get there. We will get through this. We're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We are seeing the infection rates drop here in Thailand. And so I think we all just need to just keep pushing a little bit harder, get to the end of that tunnel, and then we'll be able to enjoy the full light at that time.
All right. I hope that by the end of that, we get to meet outside, talking, shaking hands, and, get to do activities outdoor, and then we meet again. Thank you very much, Ms. Ambassador.
I look forward to that. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Have a good day.